Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bipartisan podcast. I'm your host, Riley from the RedRepublic, and we are joined by our co-host, James Tempest. So
Just kidding, faggot.
So James Tempest is a little bit of a sick lad today, very ill. So have some sympathy for the poor guy. And look, we've got a very interesting array of topics today. And it should be a good episode. Now, I think, James, before we get into the topics, maybe some transparency is what's needed here. Obviously, as we've seen, transparency has been a big issue in politics and in the world, And maybe we need to look at ourselves and think, why can't we be the ideal that we set? So, James, how about we explain why last week's episode was not put out and why we've made them wait about a month for their
It has almost been a month since the first episode.
Yes, it has been.
So we recorded the second episode. I thought it would great. I liked the topics we talked about. I liked the discussion that we had. But I go into the editing process, right? I download the audio, I cleaned it up. Well, I cleaned up my audio first, and then I opened Riley's audio. And then there's this fucking cricket throughout the entire episode. I don't know what it is. This fucking cricket I can't get rid of. It is bugging the shit out of me. And I cannot remove it from the audio. To be honest, I probably still would have. And also, it wasn't just that, but it was. Honestly, with just that cricket, I would have scrapped the episode. Just that cricket. But there was also other shit that went wrong in it.
Including my mom yelling out from downstairs, "Oi, Riley, it's dinner time!"
Basically, there was a few interruptions during the podcast on both of our ends. In fact, if I'm not sure if you heard it, but my mom just entered my room 30 seconds ago and walked out, and I just motioned, "Be quiet, get out."
The man of the house.
She had to grab something from my room, and she got out. So I'm not sure if you heard the door close. I'm sure you heard the door close.
Jeez, James, I think this is, guys, this kind of is, it's sort of it just kind of shows the respect the Conservatives have for women. They signal them out of rooms with a hand gesture. Jesus Christ, James Tempest.
Totally, dude. Get the fuck out.
Fucking traditionalist values. Like sexism. God, okay, so.
That's it. That's all the interruptions there were. So this is episode 2.5. That's how I'm dubbing it. This is the
2.5. Yeah, I like that. 2.5. It's 2.5, boys. So, I suppose no further delay. We've got to do this, James.
No.
We've got to do this. It's time.
Last week there was the first round of the French elections. And basically it was it had all the candidates. What would happen is all the candidates would square off at the first round of the French election, and whoever was in first and second place would square off one on the second round, which is tomorrow, by the way. And we'll definitely cover the results and the possible the possible future of Europe.
And just to clarify, the nominees that went through were the Emmanuel Macron of the En Marche party, which is kind of like a socialist kind of thing, and then Marine Le Pen of the National Front, which is a name that I don't. Oh, that's quite a name, the National Front. But yeah,
the National Front.
That's really that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That doesn't.
Let's talk about the candidates. Talk about the candidates real quick.
Oh God.
So
if you hit me, just quickly, just hit me. If you hit me with any of this fucking 4chan if you hit me with any 4chan stuff about tax evasion, I swear to God, James, I will knock you senseless. All right, we got that clear.
Okay,
right, continue.
I haven't heard of this. Has Emmanuel Macron evaded taxes?
No, there was some ridiculous scandal that circulated 4chan for half an hour that he was evading taxes, and it got disproven pretty quickly.
All right, well, Emmanuel Macron, he's your typical liberal pro-EU candidate. There's really not much to him. He's pretty inoffensive to the general public. He's actually more centrist than left-leaning, honestly. And obviously he's the big contender to Macron. He is pro the immigration flooding into Europe. He's pro open borders and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, Marine Le Pen, on the other hand, is anti-EU and anti anti-immigration, like anti-Islamic immigration, like from the Middle East. She's anti all that. She has said some things I very strongly disagree with, as well as Emmanuel Macron. But I don't feel like I couldn't vote in this election. I honestly feel like I couldn't vote in this election because neither of the candidates appeal to me strongly. Right. But if I had to vote, my inner conservative is just it's buzzing, dude. It's buzzing, man.
Oh, James.
It's buzzing to vote Marine Le Pen. But I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of her though. She said things like, "Let's ban the fucking hijab and yarmulke and any symbol of religious conspicuity," and I'm like, well, isn't that like a huge violation of civil liberties?
Yeah. Look, I can't imagine that the libertarians like her.
I'm not for that. I'm a libertarian. I'm a libertarian. I'm like, you should be able to do what you want. If you're wearing a fucking yarmulke in public, you should be able to wear a yarmulke as well as a hijab.
But, then again, with the whole hijab thing, this is going to sound very unliberal of me, but there is another aspect to it, and that is, like, it literally conceals your body. So I think, of course, with due restrictions, I'm not saying, like, just ban it, but I'm saying, like, with due restrictions, it should be allowed. Like, as in, you like, I know that...
We have to be able to see your face. If it's just covering up your hair...
Well, exactly. I think that's kind of a bipartisan sort of supported issue. Like, I remember for a while there was this woman who, like, in Australia, I believe she tried to sue, in the High Court, actually, against the federal government because... she wasn't allowed to enter the parliament with her full body hijab on. I'm like, well, that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. You have to show your face. So, but yeah, just to clarify for the edgy alt-righters in the comments, it's the discussion of a ban of the hijab is literally just an outright ban of it, full stop, of any religious.
No, if you're wearing it in public,
you'll get arrested.
Yeah, you have to take it off.
And it was actually banned in France for a little bit.
Was it really?
Yeah, for like a week or two, it was actually banned. They arrested chicks on beaches and stuff who were wearing it.
I saw. Oh, now I remember. That was disgusting.
That
was absolutely disgusting.
That pissed me off when I saw that, dude. I was so mad. Like that's ridiculous. That's just and
obviously
ridiculous.
from the backlash from the general public, they removed it, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, oh god, But yeah,
I'm totally against that. But with the other policies Marine Le Pen supports, I'm not too indifferent to them.
Okay. So let me ask you about this, right? Like, in terms of Marine Le Pen, have you heard a policy on crime and law enforcement?
Crime and law enforcement. I've not, please.
Okay, look, I'll give you some clarification, right? So,
sure.
Okay, in terms of the best way to sum it up, right? I can't imagine that a libertarian ideal would be a zero tolerance policy. That's the kind of thing that's generally put on by hardline
zero tolerance.
Yeah, so it's well, as in like, I mean, you know what I mean by zero tolerance, right? Like in terms of like the New York in the 80s kind of laws, like as in basically incredibly heavy sentences for anyone perceived to be a threat to the community, which is generally corrupt because what happened was it was first put in place, if I'm correct, in New York back in the 80s by Rudy Giuliani to combat mob crime. So what they used to do was they worked out a pretty simple formula that worked for the most part. Basically, people who commit the small crimes, they tend to be the same people who will commit bigger crimes because of a general disregard for the law. So what they did was if they find you speeding, they'll put you in jail for like a year. Because they know that, right? And it worked to an extent, but all it did was lead to legitimate racial profiling. So like they'd say because you were black.
So for like the mobs, they were doing a lot of these big crimes.
And that's true. Like for the Italian mobsters in New York, they didn't give a fuck about the law. Like they went 100 in city zones. For
I get it. So like these mobs, these individuals, they would commit like really heinous big crimes like murder and shit.
Yeah.
But they could never find something to prosecute them on, like no evidence or anything.
Precisely.
So when they find them doing a small crime, they'll put you in jail for it. But like still counting for all the other shit you did. They just give you a really huge sentence for it, knowing that you've done a lot of the other shit, but can't really prove it.
It's good to an extent, but here's the problem with it. It's so poorly executed. Because, look, you gotta understand, it's down to the judge to determine whether or not you're a threat to the community, and here's what happened, like, I mean, I obviously didn't grow up in New York in the 80s, but I can confirm that, like, around that time period, and in a lot of places in the world, generally, being a black guy who committed a crime, they'd put you in jail. So what would happen is that a lot of like young black boys and young Mexican boys from in New York, they were getting hit with like 15-year sentences for littering, right? Well, not littering, but like possession of like 2 grams of weed, right?
Okay.
They would hit them with huge sentences on the grounds that basically, well, they did that and they must be criminals. So it's really flawed because it doesn't take into account other factors and it's based purely...
So what does Marine Le Pen support?
She supports that, and not only does she support a total zero tolerance policy all around France, which is, I don't know if anyone's been able to work it out yet, but if they haven't pointed out, it's basically an attempt to put Muslims behind bars. Like that's literally its intention, because it's up to the lawmakers and it's up to the judges to determine what is a threat to the community. And this is Marine Le Pen, after all. She regards Muslims as a threat to the community. Therefore, it would be used to put them in prison exclusively. And the main thing, in terms of her crime and law enforcement position, is Reagan, like, is really like kind of weird.
As president, could she just do this and it would become law?
Well, regardless of whether or not she could do it immediately. Yes, she'd have to pass legislation. But the thing is, she would still be president and she still supports that. So it's definitely likely because she would probably rule with a parliamentary majority. So, look,
I don't agree with that. That's unfortunate.
What do you mean that's unfortunate?
I think it's unfortunate that just being a Muslim could get you jailed.
Well, I mean,
if that's what you're saying, if you're Muslim, you're a threat to the community, that's breaking the law. Like what?
Well, the thing is
a crime.
It's down. I know, and the thing is, it's down to the courts to determine who would be a reasonable threat to the community, which is that's the main bit that really pisses me off. But look, my main issue with her crime and law enforcement stance is one that I hope I could get some consensus from you about, and that is that she effectively supports this really weird kind of like Reagan-era war on drugs policy, which is basically, but applied to a lot of other things too. So like she believes pretty much, as opposed to harm minimization and decriminalization efforts in terms of drugs, she believes in like much heavier sentences for small amounts of drug-related crime. And I guess the thing there is, look, look at the United States now.
Listen,
did the war on drugs work?
And maybe if you asked me like 5 or 10 years ago, probably if the war on drugs worked, I'd probably be like, yes, drugs are bad, whatever. But honestly, dude, I can't even bullshit my way through this. The war on drugs has been a colossal failure.
Right? Yeah.
It's cost us billions of dollars. It's increased crime, especially like gang crime and like black market, like underground crime in a lot of our inner cities. And honestly, my dad he's a conservative, but he's always been like, as soon as the war on drugs started, he's always been telling me this: you cannot control people. You cannot control people.
That's
no matter
true.
what law you write, no matter what legislation you pass, you cannot control people. They will do as they please. So if you try to control people, like, hey, you can't have these drugs, it'll just, not only will they still do it, but it'll just get worse, and you're not helping anyone.
Well, exactly.
So now my libertarianism has grown, and I'm just saying we should just legalize all drugs.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at that. Bipartisan support, eh?
Bipartisan
that's good.
support of that.
Bipartisan support. Yep.
But a few years ago, I did support the war on drugs, though.
I can't blame it.
I was brainwashed. I'm like, drugs are bad.
Fox
but
News,
my conservative father, who believe me, is way more conservative than I am, has turned me off on the war on drugs.
Oh, good man. But the reason why sort of the relevance behind this, James, and the reason I bring it up to you is basically because in terms of this election, literally everyone is looking at 2 issues, and I think you know what they are. 1, the European Union. 2, Muslim immigration. They're like the 2 things people are looking at.
Those are the 2 big issues, and that's why I'd vote for Marine Le Pen.
But hang on. Are they really, like, in retrospect, right? In 10 years when we look back, are they actually going to be the big issues? Because here's what I'm going to say. They're the issues that get the most publicity.
In 10 years, the EU, yes. If we're still the EU, yes, it'll be a big issue.
No. What I'm saying is that in the grand scheme of things, is a stance about Muslims halting Muslim immigration to France, is that actually going to like matter as much as something like a total reinvigoration of a war on drugs in one of Europe's biggest countries, I'm sorry to say it, but like there is so much more at stake right now than
you look at these as completely like different like levels of importance, but they're both very important issues that both have.
They're important. They're important. There's no doubt about it. Like, I reckon that France, like, I suppose that the way that France votes, this election, I feel like it's going to shape the future of the EU. Because other European countries are talking about leaving, but they've been talking about leaving for ages now. But England's legitimized it. But the thing is, I feel like the way that France chooses to go will determine whether or not the EU remains stable or if it even lasts, full stop. But even that, I feel like this whole Muslim immigration thing, it's actually possibly the most sensationalized sort of policy in the media right now. Like,
I disagree with you, though. I believe, let's look at the EU. The EU is collapsing. It is going to collapse. It's a huge weight on Europe, in my opinion, and I believe getting out of it and dissolving the EU as quickly as possible is very important for the future of Europe.
Well, look, we've talked about this, James, on the podcast, and
no, we've talked about this. We've already talked about this.
So I'm not going to flesh it out.
On the Invisible episode 2, maybe one day we'll release it like on SoundCloud with like the shitty crickets in the background.
Yeah, that'd be a great episode.
That'll interesting.
But the main thing is, James, like when it comes to the EU, whether or not you want Europe to succeed, it's almost irrelevant to the whole Muslim immigration thing, because everyone's sort of been talking about
Muslim immigration. I believe is bringing a lot of crime to Europe. I believe it's bringing a lot of, especially look at Sweden. Look at Sweden.
Fuck,
it's impossible to ignore Sweden, Riley. It's impossible.
But hang on,
Sweden's it's not just Sweden. Sweden's just the biggest example because they've taken it almost the most.
But hang on, I can name you 2 reasons as to why that's like a totally faulty assertion. So like the one I hear so much is that Sweden has a rape epidemic because of how high rape counts are. Do you know something about Sweden? Sweden has the loosest rape laws in the world because the fucking country got polluted by SJWs in politics. So literally, you breathe on a girl's neck the wrong way and you're in jail for rape. It has really loose... And guess what? It's had these loose rape laws for years. No one's ever talked about how ridiculous they are. But as soon as
wait. They had strong rape laws?
Like, no, loose.
Breathe on the girl.
Loose.
So like you could rape a girl and still get away with it.
Oh, I meant to say like encompassing. Sorry, not just
So it's a very
not
strong
loose.
rape policy, as in strong. Like if you
it's
breathe
strong
on a girl's neck,
and vast. Like,
so if you even breathe on the girl's neck, it's rape.
That was more of a hyperbolic sort of thing, but it's
Well, I know, but like just how strong it is, basically.
So here's the thing, right? Sweden has always had these really strong rape laws because, tune to the History Network sometime. Scandinavia has had like a pretty, like, I'm not gonna say rape culture, but rape's always been a thing in Scandinavia in terms of like, if you look back into the Viking days. But in any event, rapes always happen. And so what happened in Sweden some time ago was they put in place this whole like almost FDR New Deal kind of thing, but just exclusively about rape and sexual harassment laws. And you know what it did? I believe it kind of took sexual assault laws, sexual assault crimes, and sexual harassment crimes and rape crimes, and kind of jumbled them all into the one thing, essentially. Right? So for that reason, you have alarmingly high numbers of rapes in Sweden that are recorded and arrested. But I've never seen anybody source the ethnicity of the people who commit them, dude, because there's a lot of rapes.
Look at all these Look at all the recorded, like, we found the perpetrator and stuff. Look at all the recorded rape like crimes in Sweden. It's always some Muslim guy.
No, that's where you're wrong, James. That's where you're wrong. Look, how many rapes do you think we have about what, maybe 10,000 rapes in Australia a year? How many do you think realistically get reported in the news? Let me put it like this:
I'm sure there's more that don't get reported.
That's the point.
But the ones
James.
that are reported,
James, have you considered this, James? You're not looking at this with enough cynicism, right? Think about it. Just think about it for a second. Do you think the media is going to report on literally every rape? What, some random ass white guy raped a girl at a party somewhere? Oh, let's make a big story about it. No, that doesn't really happen. It doesn't happen anywhere. But an illegal immigrant raped a citizen. Well, we can report on that. For all we know, 99% of rapes in Sweden might occur, and they might be perpetrated by citizens. But that 1% is what leads these sort of media articles that slam immigrants, right? And so it's sort of this argument that falls back on just, I don't want to say fake news, but fake news, pretty much. Or sensationalizing in the media. And also, just another thing about crime in...
that is a fair argument, but that's kind of hard to believe considering the current media, especially in Europe, is very left-leaning. There's no the government of Sweden is not pro banning immigration. In fact, they're very for it, and so is the media there. The media is in Sweden is very pro EU. You realize that, right?
I get that, but in any event, James,
pretty much every media in Europe is pro EU.
But here, James, Sweden, despite being a socialist country, it's not like all the media networks are owned by the government. So what is a media network, ultimately? It's a corporation. They're trying to get the clicks. And I'm sorry to say it, James, when you report a story on an illegal immigrant raping somebody, you're not pushing an agenda that's either left or right. Now, they'll frame it as starting a conversation, but it's really not. When they put out a story like this, they know that somebody's going to click on it. They know it's going to get shared around Twitter. They know there's going to be a debate happening on Twitter about, like, can we blame all? Can we kick out all the refugees for this? No, you can't kick them all out. They don't all like this. No, they're all like this. So it's clicks, James. It's clicks.
But rapes have gone up ever since the immigration
but
policies
James, Sweden is a country. Refugees. James, Sweden is a country that does not have a terribly high amount of immigration. So naturally, when you have a mass influx of people, it's basic maths, really. When you have a country that gets a tiny amount of immigration per year, then you get a mass influx. Rape doesn't just go up; everything goes up.
Dude, there's areas of Sweden, there's ghettos where you'll just get attacked. Randomly by these immigrants. It's happening in Sweden, dude.
But that's an assertion that you can't back up, James.
Yes, they have. They've sent reporters there that have been attacked.
You seen these ghettos?
They've recorded it. Riley.
But like, what do you know about these things, James? James, these are basically assertions that just have no basis in much at all. Like what do we realistically know? Right?
We know that there are no-go zones where police cannot go into because of these gang-controlled ghettos. And look, because they'll just attack anyone.
And look, the way I see it, to be honest, James, is that neocons have started aiming their rifles in the other direction. It used to be all this bad stuff happens in Sweden because of socialism. But what they've done is
Sweden's they've taken... It's not socialism. What? It's not socialism at all.
Well, tell that to Fox News and Bill O'Reilly, who called it a socialist country for all those years. So what they did was they took their rifle that was aimed on the social democracy, and they pointed at immigrants and said, no, we retract all that. It's the immigrants doing it. Let's be real.
Of course it's the immigrants. It's not just Sweden. Sweden's just the strongest examples. There's no-go zones all across Europe. So there's constant riots.
But
it's happening all across Europe.
James, I've expressed to you previously that I don't support open borders anywhere because I think that the idea of open borders doesn't work.
That's fine.
But in any event, like I've said before, refugees, you can look at it from however many perspectives you want. You can see the economic benefit. The more people in a country, the more money that's spent, right? You can see it from the humanitarian benefit. Morally speaking, it is good to accept people who are at risk of dying into a country. You could look at it from the legal perspective and say, we are legally obligated to take these people in. But no matter what perspective you see it from, I just can't see a particular reason as to why we should just kick them all out or whatever the hell.
We should kick them out, but we should stop bringing more in.
But that's the thing, James. No one's necessarily bringing them in. They come, right? So what? Wouldn't it be better to accept the ones that you've got as members of society, fulfill your legal requirement to the UN, and accept any more refugees? And equally, would it not be an idea? Anymore. Sorry.
I said not if you're not a part of the UN anymore.
Are you telling me that you somehow think that France would leave the United Nations as well, because that's ridiculous. Any country that leaves the United Nations is going to get.
Oh, I'm sorry, the UN. I'm sorry, I thought you said EU.
I meant the UN. Sorry. Article 14 of the.
Let's be honest. Barely any country, especially our country, does not follow a lot of the articles of the UN.
Yeah, and they should not be doing that. But the difference is
It's disgusting.
America's a superpower.
I don't really agree with Article 14, but like a lot of the other ones that they break, like especially when it comes to, do you know how many innocent people we've killed over our drone strikes, dude? How many innocent civilians?
A lot.
And under UN law, we should get fucking canned for that. But we don't, because we're the fucking James, US. Like,
I know, and this is the whole cynicism thing, right? You've got to think about it. America is literally the world's only superpower. The United Nations has no army. The United Nations is actually the only power it has is dictated by its members. The United Nations, in theory, big countries can just control that's the flaw behind it. Big countries can just control it if they want to. If they really want to. You know, America's got that veto on the Defense Council. So, in theory, they can do what they want to an extent, but that doesn't make it right. I'm sorry, but Article 14,
no, it does not make it right.
Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy another country's asylum for persecution, and it's the responsibility of countries to accept them. So even if you don't agree with it, then I suppose that if you don't agree with that, you're looking at leaving the UN, and you're looking at leaving these treaties about human rights, which is destructive. So the way I see it, James, you've got to accept them if they are legitimate refugees. And hey, look, I'm all in support of heavy vetting.
You kind of have to, but
like, James, what I'm saying is,
I don't think we should. I don't think it's a legitimate human right.
But James, your opinion doesn't fucking matter, because it is a legitimate human right because it's in the Charter of Human Rights.
Well, let's see if France does stop letting in these refugees. Let's say they stop accepting refugees. Is anything going to happen to France? Is anything going to happen to France? Let's be honest, dude.
Well, even if maybe it could. I don't know.
The UN is not going to fucking can France. France is a huge contributor to the UN. It's just going to be like the fucking drone strikes on innocent people. It's going to be the exact same thing. Nothing's going to happen.
France is in America, James. But in any event,
France is not in America.
I know.
It'll be the same situation. We stopped accepting refugees. We canned our refugee program. Has anything happened to us?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's America. Of course,
America, one of the big players in the UN, is going to be fine with it because we're doing the exact same thing. Britain's going to be doing the exact same thing, especially if they get new leadership this general election.
Right, but in any event, James, no matter how you look at the refugee crisis, the way it should be handled is if they are legit. Look, like I said, I'm in support of heavy vetting. I think it's fine if people are coming into your country and they are seeking help, you have to make sure they actually are legitimate, and you can bring them in. That's good. That's acceptable. That's moral. So you have to. You should vet them. So once you've let them in, after heavy vetting, not just like letting them just come in trains and the droves and the masses with no checking. This is my problem with the Liberals actually on this issue. They're not being cynical enough about it. They kind of just go like, oh no, they're all going to be good, happy people. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, they're human beings. There's going to be shitbags in there. There's going to be rapists. There's going to be murderers in there. So yeah, you've got to vet them. You do have to vet them.
I believe we should if you want to talk about humanitarian efforts, we should definitely like spend at least some resources on revitalizing the Middle East, so they can have a place to live. And but then again, here's my non-interventionalist fucking self coming in as well, saying, oh, we should probably not like start wars with people there because there are regimes. But
the point is, James, I'm sorry to say, you can't contradict yourself like that. You have to accept that if you don't believe in interventionism, you have to accept that when they do come to you, that you should accept them.
You're not wrong. I have to choose something. I have to choose.
You can't stay in the middle, James. That's the problem here. And look, I totally get it. There's gonna be dickbags, and there's gonna be terrorists. There's gonna be rapists. There's gonna be murderers. Don't worry. I'm sold on that. I know that. So that's why I think they should be vetted. They should be checked off, and then you should put them on a path to citizenship, which is the rational thing to do in a case like this. So, look, the main thing is, I don't support the open borders, but I don't like this idea that Marine Le Pen has about sort of mass deportation, or I think she wants to imprison them too, which is Well, that's just not an acceptable thing to do, I don't think.
I know that there's a reason why the refugee crisis is called the refugee crisis, dude. There's
it's
a word crisis in there.
Yeah, well, but that James, that's not their fault. It's not called a crisis because of them and something that they've done wrong. It's called a refugee crisis because there's so many of them.
Whenever you bring someone with an Eastern we're talking about like a lot of these people that are rigging a lot of these refugees hold Muslim beliefs, and these Muslim beliefs are not compatible with Western law and culture. They don't. It is not compatible. They don't believe all the things we believe, Riley. They don't.
James, that's a very baseless assertion that is not necessarily true, and it's just simply a generalization that can't be proven, and it really shouldn't be accepted. Because look, I mean, think about it. Sharia law, right? I don't like it. I don't like Sharia law. I don't like what's happening in Saudi Arabia or the UAE. I don't like it particularly. I don't like what's happening in Syria in terms of their laws. I think it's very wrong. However, this sort of belief acts on this idea that all people act with disregard to the law. When people from those countries, they acted within the law of their country. But James, just listen to me. If they're good people, and after you vet them, you ensure they're good, I can guarantee this: they will abide by the laws of the country. And if they don't, you can put them in jail and you can deport them later. But it's actually overly cynical to assume that all of them are not compatible in Western society, because I could say the exact same thing about any country that isn't Australia. Really, I could say, well, US.
No,
James.
Are pretty compatible with Australia.
No, why don't I say this? I could just say Americans aren't compatible in Australia. They support everyone owning guns, and we support the total opposite. Therefore, they're culturally not compatible. So is that now a valid reason to keep them out of the country?
Listen, the law of owning guns is extremely different from Sharia law. It's extremely different. Different. Do you know some of the laws in Sharia?
I know and they're bad, but
they're fucking worse than just owning a gun.
Well, but hang on, but no, you're not talking about what's
what's wrong or right. You're talking
Australia,
they're like, fuck, I need to have a gun.
James,
I need to have a gun.
You're not talking about morality. If I heard you correctly, you're talking about compatibility. So regardless
of about morality is part of compatibility.
Is it though? Like I heard you say that. Yeah, that it's not compatible because look, I'm sorry, like it could be totally moral and right to own a gun, but in Australia, it's actually not moral or right to own a gun. Moral's the wrong word, but it's not right to own a gun in Australia. It's not really legal as such. So because of the mindset that's shared by Americans, and that is owning guns, hell yeah, guns, tits and booze, I don't know, they're not compatible in Australia by that same logic. Because we don't own AR-15s, we can't own AR-15s. Is that not the same as you saying, is that not the same as me saying that we can't allow Muslims because they support the stoning of women or something like that? I'm sorry, but I think
that's exactly true.
But yes. I think it's kind of similar.
Listen, all right, hold on, real quick. Do you think it'd be fair? Let's say this vetting process. We ask a refugee, "Do you believe in Sharia law?" And they say, yes. Then can we block them? Is that fair?
Well, hang on a second. That's fair. You're asking them, do they support the laws of the country they're from? I'm sure they'd say, like anyone, well, yes. When I'm in that country, I follow the laws of the country. But I think the better question to ask them is, are you willing to accept the laws of this country? And, like anything, you assess their character.
A lot of them don't because their core beliefs in their religion completely contradict the laws in the country, dude.
I don't want to do the whole personal experience thing, but like, I'm telling you, I've met a lot of refugees, and I can tell you, James, that they're really not bad people. There's sort of this false assertion that you seem to have, and that's shared by a lot of people, and that is that all Muslims are fundamentalists all of a sudden. There is an overwhelming amount of secular Muslims compared to fundamentalist Muslims. And I'm sorry to say, secular Muslims do not support Sharia law. They just don't. They really don't. They're God, I met a woman who was from Saudi Arabia, and she's sort of like an academic of sorts, and she writes about women's rights. Now, would a passionate supporter of Sharia law really be writing out the rights of women, James?
Of course not.
Well, therefore, she's not a supporter of... But how's that possible? By what you just said. James.
But here's the thing. I look at all the things happening in Europe, dude. The refugee crisis is a real thing that's happening. It's happened from immigration. It's happened from this immigration, these refugees coming in. It has happened because of this. That is what I believe, and that's what I'm seeing.
Well, I'm sorry to say, I'm just not sure if it's fair enough.
Things that are allowed in Sharia.
But James, I just don't feel like this is accurate. I'm sorry. In Australia, we've had loads of we've had a good amount of we've got a pretty good refugee program, except for the illegal part of it that I can flesh out if you'd like a bit later. But our refugee program doesn't accept all that many refugees. We accept a tolerable amount. I think we accept 12,500, so not a huge amount.
That's nothing compared to what Europe's accepted.
But that's my point. See, Europe is a bad example. But James, Europe's a bad example because Europe is the exception, not the rule. Isn't it? It's far from the rule.
Fair enough.
Europe's right. So Europe's program is ridiculous and was brought on by reactionary liberal bullshit. But look, in Australia, right, we heavily vet them. We have a slightly inhumane process of keeping them, where we put them on an island indefinitely, which is actually illegal. But there are better ways to do it, I'm sure. But
every country's doing something that's fucking illegal.
Yeah, but I think what the best we can do really is improve conditions for them and keep children and their families out of those.
Obviously,
camps.
Europe does not have the vetting process Australia does. Does not have
in Australia.
This refugee program
hard to get in. So here's actually the other thing I want to bring up. I hear there's this common sort of thing thrown around that is that refugees are terrorists. You understand that that's this is something that I've heard all over the place. But in Australia,
not
look,
inherently terrorists.
No, James,
not.
In Australia, right? I hear this a lot, from people like Pauline Hanson and all them, and they kind of say Muslim sort of refugees are terrorists, right? And here's a problem with that. The key problem with that is to get into Australia as a refugee. You know how long it takes on average? It takes nearly 7 to 8 years, but yeah, around that time, about 8 years to get in as a refugee. And look, just to give you an idea of it, a good friend of mine, his dad actually works in the Refugee Review Tribunal, and you know what he told me? In the last 3 years, on the days that he's worked there, they've accepted 3 people. Only 3 people fulfilled the requirements, and they got accepted.
You know how long it takes to get into Europe? It takes probably a couple of months to up to a year.
Well, I think it's actually it was for some time a lot less, but I think a heavy vetting process is fine. Because if you're actually going to protect a border,
I'm fine with that, dude. I'm fine with that. But the refugee crisis, of course, these refugees coming in, the way they are, it's not working, dude.
But in Europe,
so I am for either canning the program or going with something Australia has.
I mean, look, your good mate, Mr. Trump, he's commended our program previously, and I can understand why, minus the illegal part, of course. But
I'm sorry, you cut out a bit there, probably not in the recording, but Discord did.
Oh, sorry.
Can you repeat what you said?
I just said,
boy, Mr. Trump.
Yes, your good friend, Mr. Trump. He's commended Australia's refugee program, minus the illegal part.
He has. He
said it was a very good program, it's true. We accept a good number of people, enough people to meet quotas. We accept only the good people, the best people, and you know what we do that's really smart. That Europe take notes, right? When a refugee comes into the country, we put them on a refugee visa, right? But you know what we do? We actually allow them to get onto other visas. As in, if you're a refugee, you can go from being a refugee, and then a month later, you're going to be off your refugee visa, and you're actually going to be a skilled worker because you waited through the process, you waited your turn, and you proved yourself as an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor. And guess what? Now you're on the road to citizenship, and within maybe 4 years, you're an Australian citizen, and that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Keep the good people in, people who aren't going to be of assistance, because at the end of the day, the country is owned by the people who live there, and if we're going to accept people from outside, they have to be the good ones. And so, from a moral standpoint, we should accept them, and from a sort of utilitarian standpoint, we should set the good ones. So find the balance is what I'm saying. Don't do what fucking Germany did and take 600,000 of them within 3 months without checking on any of them. Just
that has created a crisis, dude.
Well, yeah, it's overpopulation. Duh, of course it's caused a crisis. But I don't blame that on religion. I blame that on an overinflux of people who aren't educated in the country. Because in Australia you have to.
But that's why it's important to relieve Europe and cut the current refugee program. That is why it's important.
Well, I think maybe you should just temporarily suspend it, then come back with a better one.
I think the benefits, like let's look at the two ones. Well, we could keep on going with the current refugee program. Like this is what we're voting on. This is what the French are voting on in the election. We can either keep the current refugee program and ignore all of the faults with it, or we can vote for RedRepublic, completely suspend it, and there's no idea of bringing it back, unfortunately. But you never know.
Neither of them are fantastic. Neither of them are fantastic, and I'm sorry.
I'm going to go with the latter on this one. I'm going to go with Marine Le Pen.
So
It'll
what?
Have more benefits than to keep the
refugee
program.
Okay, so what? You keep you suspend the refugee program. Good job. Now they're arresting 13-year-old black boys and putting them in jail for the rest of their lives for possession of 3 grams of marijuana. Is that what you want to vote for, James? Is that what you support? Because like when I look at the benefits,
man, I don't think that's actually gonna happen though.
But James, this is the war on drug policy. This is how it's done.
I know, but
that's how it's executed.
I don't think it'll pass.
No, James, you can't use that as an excuse. You have to accept it's an
executive order.
Of course, but it could get passed. So that's the point. Are you going to vote for a candidate who would potentially who supports that? So whether or not
I don't want to.
Exactly.
I don't want to, but Emmanuel Macron isn't any fucking better, dude.
If you look at the benefits versus the negatives, I'm just pointing this out. Emmanuel Macron, he is, despite being a more status quo establishment candidate, his policies are safer. And look, we don't even need. And in terms of the immigration thing, well, come on, just be rational. If you're gonna sit here and talk about what may or may not get passed, let's be real. It would be wrong to assume that the French Parliament is not going to put something in place to limit immigration, because it would happen.
Of course, it's already
in the works. Yeah, I know.
No, it's not already in the works. I haven't heard anything about it, but it's already pretty much consensus that the refugee program is fucking awful. Almost consensus.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's gonna get any better, because liberals will fucking attack that shit like if they'll fucking sick like a dog. It'll happen like that.
Look, James. Either way, it's not. Look, I mean, either way, you've got to pick it. I'm sorry, but like, if you want to have a more nationalist standpoint, the way that you would vote, if you truly want to vote with the integrity of citizens at heart, you would vote for Macron this election, because I'm sorry, it's not a great idea to see your comrades put in jail for absurd amounts of time because of small crimes. That's just ridiculous. And look, let's be real. How long is Europe's open borders going to last anyway? It's gonna be taken.
Lasted way longer than it already has to have had to last. I mean, and people like Angela Merkel are still pushing for the current system.
Well, Angela Merkel's a fucking sycophant. So I don't need to focus on her.
Is it Angela or is it Angela? I've been saying Angela.
I mean, I just call her. I could just call her left-wing Hitler, to be honest with you. Like
left-wing Hitler.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, so
damn, dude. Why do these German leaders keep on ruining Europe?
No, I know, right? And you know what? The second that England left, I'm like, yeah, no, it's back to the Third Reich. It's the Fourth Reich now, boys. Good job. Okay, anyway,
it is the Fourth Reich.
So we've done that topic. We've done that topic, boys. Put your opinions in the comments.
It's 40 minutes. It's 40 minutes into the podcast talking about 1 out of 3 topics. We
okay,
could talk
James.
For hours about this shit, dude. Honestly, we really could. Second topic.
Bill Nye. Guy.
A much lighter topic than what we've been talking about.
For a more like.
Listen, I've been watching Bill Nye Saves the World. I love the show. I've watched. I think
me too. I like it. It's a good show.
1 through 7. I love the show, dude. I love the show. I do enjoy it.
Then that episode comes
9.
on.
I've not watched episode 9 yet, but I've seen parts, bips and bobs from it. All right. Oh
yes.
What? It is. Oh. Do you know they? Do you know that they've like that they cut out Netflix went back on an old Bill Nye episode and cut the part out where they said that gender was determined by chromosomes. They cut that out.
I saw that. I did see that.
Yeah.
But that's pretty.
That's absolutely disgusting. Now, I see this episode. They're talking about how, I guess gender is on a spectrum. So I guess gender is by definition a social construct. It really shouldn't be, though. In my opinion, it really shouldn't be. But sure, people could identify it as a spectrum. That's fine. But then they say sex is on a spectrum. No. No, it isn't.
Right, yeah.
It is not a spectrum.
So, like,
you're either a boy or a girl, or you've had an imperfection, and you're somewhere in between. That's what we call like an actual trans person stuff. Like you're a girl with a dick, or like a boy with a fucking, I don't know, no dick. I don't know. All right, that's not a spectrum. That's like three possible outcomes. It's only real two outcomes. Just one possible deformity that's less than 1% of the population.
Sure.
So this is just it's basically just pandering to liberals. It's not based out of science. What Bill Nye is teaching on the show on episode 9.
And here's the thing, right? But
attraction is on a spectrum. You can see that you saw the chart. The attraction is on a spectrum. But that is true. People can be attracted to boys or girls or whatever.
But you know what I was thinking, right? Like here's a good thing.
Sure.
When you think about the spectrum, like he put this whole search now that was like, so it's like, yeah, gender is on a spectrum. I think he should have clarified and said gender identity is on the spectrum. And then I thought about it more. I'm like, hang on. How do you quantify gender? So, like, am I 85% male versus you being 83% male? Because that's what a spectrum would be, right? Like, it would have to be...
Yeah, sure.
You'd have to identify people as more of this and more of that. So, you know what that would lead to, right? Like, and here's why it could not be scientific. It's illogical. So I could be, like, a little bit... Like, I could be, like... 75% male, 25% female, or all these other fucking genders. There's really there's nothing great behind it. But I would like to point out,
it's just there's so many like actual like imperfections in fact and science in the episode about in a show about science. I'm sorry, I think that's disgusting. It's all just to push a liberal philosophy.
But you know what's like slightly worse than what he said on there, right? The conservative media response.
The conservative media response hasn't been great either.
Do you want to hear what the AIG reviews that said?
Go ahead. I'm not going to enjoy it, but go ahead.
It's really good. Wait, James, just can we clarify for the viewers? What is your religious standing?
Me?
Yes.
I am an atheist, a very non-conservative point of view. I identify as a conservative. I hold many conservative views, in belief, of course. But I don't think I'm going to enjoy this. I'm not going to enjoy this. Read the article title. Go ahead.
Remember, Bill Nye has no foundation on which to offer any kind of morality. As an atheist, he has rejected God's word as the authority. He claims there is no creator who sets the rules.
This is fucking absurd.
So who decides what's right and wrong?
So here's the thing. They're gonna push this. They're gonna push this like, atheists don't have morals because they're non-religious. Like, what?
So then it goes, it's nothing more than his opinion grounded in nothing, but his, or at best, the majority's opinion. He has no foundation for morality. So...
I hate that fucking stereotype that religion has, like, just because you're not religious, there's no way you could have actual foundation for morality. Do you know why we have laws? These laws weren't created just because religion exists, but they were created because... I mean,
I think we get philosophical. I could go like the whole
It's common human nature.
Thing.
Like, humans wouldn't survive as long if we just kept on killing each other. That's why the law of... Like, but morality... It will come naturally. It'll come naturally.
Well, James, don't forget though.
Through laws.
You can be the world's most moral person, but still be totally unethical, and you could be the world's most ethical person and still be the most moral. That's kind of the way that I like to look at it. So, but in any event, but that's kind of, it's such a ridiculous thing for someone to write. But here is I'm just looking at an article now by Newsweek. And Newsweek, I believe, are fairly liberal. So I'm just looking at it now. So it's another issue that came up there because we're talking about the whole general issue of Bill Nye. Climate change was one of the issues that sort of he brought up throughout the show, and I thought his segments that they were very well done in terms of.
I was skeptical. I'm skeptical on climate change, but again we talked about this in the group chat. I'm still very for
you fucking madman.
Solve climate
change.
No,
guys, you gotta hear this, right? We're in a group chat and we're just talking about some tame ass shit, and then out of nowhere, James Wood has like 4 paragraphs about his thoughts on climate change.
Like, no, we started actually having a debate in the group chat, but like every time every time I would speak, it'd be like a paragraphs of information.
I'd be like, oh yeah, no, I went down to the shops. I went down to the shops with the boys, bought a few ciggies, and James out of nowhere. Climate change scientists have proven to have lied at various points throughout modern history.
Come on, we were all talking about it. Even before I started talking about it, you asshole. Don't fucking betray it like this.
You're like an old man.
Fake news.
You came so late. Like, we stopped.
I know, it took a long time to type. It took a long time to type.
Such an angry old man. It was funny. But anyway,
fake news.
So in terms of, like, things that are, like, weird in it, but anyway, so he gave the climate change thing, and, like, I think the way he presented it was very well. He presented the general fact, and that is, like, this kind of the statement that I stand by, right? Climate change, natural, has happened for millions of years. It's caused by, like, it could happen by things like volcanoes, just general changes in the climate.
But global warming. My argument, though, I said whether or not it's real, it doesn't matter. We should still fucking
that's a very good point.
We need to turn to, like, renewable energy sources because motherfucker, we're gonna be running out of oil.
Yeah,
in, like,
but like
80
the thing
years.
Is,
okay,
global
dude?
warming. I accept that global warming and climate change are natural, but my point is also, and I don't know why some denying conservatives can't get us in their fucking stupid southern brains. I don't believe that global warming or climate change is caused by humans. I believe that humans contribute disproportionately to global warming. I don't believe it's wrong that humans contribute to global warming. Of course, we're going to contribute to it, but I think it's
irrelevant. To me, it's irrelevant.
No, but the thing is, it's relevant, but like, whatever your angle is. The thing is, though, I'm sorry to say it, I don't want to sound like, the kind of cynical, skeptic bloke over here, but what is the actual intention behind denying global warming? Think about it like
Obviously, for money.
It's profit. I mean, dude, of course, it serves the coal industry so nicely.
I still think it should be a debate because I'm still pretty skeptical of whether climate change exists. But let's look at it this way. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about us running out of coal and oil, and there being fucking war about it. Have you ever seen the Fallout games? Do you know why all that shit happened? It's because we ran out of natural resources and the world started fighting over it. Yeah, that's why it happened. And that isn't too much of a fantasy, dude. That isn't too much of a fantasy. Yeah. Once the world starts running out of natural resources, our fucking lives will fucking go to shit. Everything will be so overpriced. Wars will happen because over just natural resources. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about the future that way. I could give a shit if the world has a bit of spicy weather, dude. I don't care. I'm worried about other things, and that's why we should
actually,
switch
James,
to
let me just chime in there. One thing you should care about is actually, now, this is an issue that Americans tend not to know much about. This isn't a generalization, just literally, it's not relevant to you guys as much. But, as I think you know, around Australia are thousands of little islands, okay? Now, sure. These islands do have a large amount of people on them. So, for example, Kiribati is a group of islands spread out over an area the size of Australia, about 100 islands spread over that space, and there's 100,000 people in Kiribati. As of late, the people in Kiribati have been dying, and they've been losing land because naturally heat causes ice sheets to melt. And this causes more water in the ocean. Obviously, more water in the ocean that is disproportionate to what the water is adapted to, causes land to get eaten up, and this is it's really destroying the islands. And so it's not so much about the world heating up because it's not going to affect you or I, who live in these big countries. It's affecting the smaller guys, and it affects. There's so much more at stake here than just renewable versus non-renewable. But I accept what you're saying totally. I think, even from the renewable energy thing, right? It's actually more efficient. It's way more efficient to have renewable energy.
Renewable energy, of course.
If we
it absolutely is. It saves more money.
And look, you get your fucking conservatives and House Republicans getting up and on the preachy pedestal, all like, no, we shall not spend $4 billion instigating this program.
Obviously not, because there's conflicts of interest, of course, dude.
But yeah, that's the thing. But you hear him get up, and I'm just like, well, what we pay $4 billion now to save up to trillions of dollars in the future. Sounds like a fair deal to me. Also, what about the defense budget? How's that looking, boys? How's that looking? Oh, yeah.
Please leave me alone on the defense budget. I don't like the defense budget.
I mean, this is what I was saying the entire campaign. This is what I like to do to shut people who didn't like Bernie Sanders up. I used to say to them, like, they go like, but how do we pay for it all? Like, how are we going to afford $90 billion for education? And I'm like, why don't we just eliminate 12.5% of the defense budget on a defense budget that's actually inflated by 50%? We liquidate that part of it and use that for education. And then it's kind of like, socialism bad. Socialism bad, bro. Which it kind of is, actually, but like...
Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't want to get into this debate now. We can do this on another episode since we only got a few minutes left of the runtime. But I'm still against that. Not cutting from defense, because it absolutely needs to be put in more important things. But a system like that for education, I don't believe it would be a good thing. Again, I'm against socialism. I'm against... not altogether, of course.
But James, socialist. Like, here's the problem with these fucking...
Oh, we're gonna get into this right now, are we?
Okay, I'm gonna be like, I'm not gonna go on too much of it, but I'm just gonna put it out.
Yeah, no, sure.
Okay, here's the problem. I'm not an identity politics guy. I hate identity politics, right? I
fucking hate. Yeah, I do too. Because you can see, I guess I identify as a Republican and a conservative, but you saw, I'm an atheist. I'm for these methods of cutting CO2 emissions.
I've said this before. And if you ever wondered, like, actually, here's a funny story for you guys. If you ever wondered why my Twitter bio is the Chardonnay Socialist, it's because I was having a talk with my dad once about political ideologies, and he asked me, "Well, Riley, do you have a political ideology?" And I couldn't think of one. So he said, "Well, Riley, you're a rich white boy who likes Bernie Sanders, so I'll call you a Chardonnay Socialist." And I thought that was very funny.
There we go.
So I don't associate with a particular ideology, and I don't think you should. But in any event, I hate identity politics, and I don't like any of that stuff associated with it. But I'm sorry to say it, I'm not going to let anyone get away with saying that morality shouldn't play a factor in politics. Let's be real. The moral position is that people should be able to go to school for free, for the sole reason that the only way out of poverty is education. Excuse me a second. Yes?
I wouldn't say all the time. I don't think the only way out of it is definitely hey guys, this is Riley from the Red Republic, being interrupted by a family member during a podcast. Here we go. Anything could be happening behind this mic. I'm just gonna make sure it's 57 minutes in, so I know during the recording I can. And also he'll hear this too. He will definitely listen back to this, and he will be so embarrassed. They had another interruption during one of our podcasts. Oh, he is back.
I'm back, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
What's right now?
I don't. Also, Riley, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one. I don't think the only way out is education.
Well, I can send you loads of essays.
There are labor jobs. There are different jobs to.
Well, hang on. How do you get those jobs? You got to get educated.
Not exactly. Not all of them.
Well, how are you going?
I don't think you have to have. I don't think you have to be educated to work at fucking McDonald's, dude.
Well, I mean. What does education teach you, though? Like, it teaches you... Education is more than just textbooks. But, in any event, that's just...
If you want a career, you need education.
Sure.
But a job? I'm going to disagree with you on that. But the moral position is everyone should be able to easily access education. I'd say that's true.
So wouldn't it just be more logical to make education free?
No.
But why? What are the negatives? I mean, what? So
again, I would like to have if we're going to discuss this topic, I'm more than willing to have this discussion with you. But I'd like to be able to be prepared for this a topic.
That'll be a good episode. So anyway,
want to do that next episode?
Yes, we should. So anyway, we missed out on the American Healthcare Act passing, but I'm still butthurt about that. So let's just
automatically. So topics we should talk about next episode. We need to talk about the outcomes of tomorrow because it's going to be very important for Europe. We should talk about the American Healthcare Act passing because it's very important. If you want to talk about free education, we could talk about free education next episode. Do you want those to be the automatic 3 topics right there?
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's settled then. Also,
fantastic.
because like So far throughout episode 1, 2, and 2.5, I've not created notes. But if I want to talk about policies such as making education free, I'd like to have notes in front of me. I'm sure you would as well.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's fine.
All right, well, I guess that was a good episode. I enjoyed that. I love how we go right into fucking from Bill Nye just to climate change.
Yeah,
climate change to sex. No, from Bill Nye to climate change to sex. I love it. I love how we just traverse across topics.
It's beautiful. It's truly a thing of beauty.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the second episode of the Bipartisan podcast. I hope you enjoyed. Our links to our Twitters and YouTube channels will be in the description. I just hit 100 subs. Riley's still putting out new content. And, of course, until next time, we will see you later. Bye.
Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.